become death, the destroyer of worlds.
The creation of the atomic bomb was one of the most important discoveries in the world. It has completely changed the way the world wages war and has benefited and destroyed many people. The project to create an atomic weapon started in response to a theory that German scientists had been trying to develop a weapon using nuclear energy. This project, codenamed the Manhattan Project, was started by President Franklin D. Roosevelt and led by J. Robert Oppenheimer.
In 1939, Albert Einstein had learned that the Germans successfully split the uranium atom. Splitting the atom is known as nuclear fission, and it releases a tremendous amount of energy. Einstein wrote to President Franklin D. Roosevelt with his worries. In the following 2 years, more reports proved that beating the Germans to create this great and terrible weapon needed to be at the top of the list for the United States. The Manhattan Project was launched in December of 1941.
So, Professor Ghosh, since you received your PhD at the University of Chicago, what can you tell me about the Chicago Pile?
Well, in 1942, during the Second World War, Enrico Fermi led a team of scientists at the University of Chicago, and they built this gigantic structure of about 400 pounds under the university's abandoned football field stands. It was called the Chicago Pile, and it was used to demonstrate the first ever self-sustaining nuclear reaction.
What was the historical significance of this discovery?
It was a major scientific achievement and a turning point in history because it paved the way for nuclear power plants that we see around us today.
Thank you.
In 1942, Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer and General Leslie Groves had a small secret town built in the desert of New Mexico. Completed in 1943, Los Alamos was so secretive that the only mailing address for the whole town was a P.O. box in Santa Fe. The two men gathered physicists and other scientists from across the United States, Europe, and even recruited from Nazi Germany in a job codenamed Operation Paperclip. Thousands of scientists and staff lived in Los Alamos with their families for years while working on the atomic bomb. Security was ridiculously tight in Los Alamos. One early resident of the secret city said, "I couldn't write a letter without seeing a censor poring over it. But it had to be this way. This project was a race against the Nazis, but it was a secret race. Everything was a secret." After the reports from Einstein and others, the scientists at Los Alamos knew they needed plutonium or uranium to create the nuclear fission bomb. They gathered huge amounts of both elements while they designed the weapon. Once the first atom is split, it causes a chain reaction of splitting. Each atom releases large amounts of energy, which results in the huge explosions we know about today. The researchers at Los Alamos looked at an implosion-type bomb. An implosion-type device would have a subcritical amount of the element at the core, and the implosion would compress the mass into a supercritical mass. Critical mass is the minimum amount of material necessary to support a self-sustaining chain reaction. In 1944, the scientists realized that only a plutonium bomb could be an implosion bomb due to the discovery of its spontaneous fission. This meant that the uranium bomb would have to be gun-type. A gun-type bomb fires the bullet of fissile material into the target when detonated. This process assembles critical mass and leads to an explosion. Los Alamos received materials from Oak Ridge and Hanford and finalized the design for the bombs in 1944. Harry Truman was elected as president on April 12, 1945, and was informed of the Manhattan Project on April 25th. The final decision to drop the bomb on Japan was his. On July 16, 1945, the world saw the true power of the atom. There wasn't enough uranium for more than one bomb, and the researchers at Los Alamos were so confident in the gun-type bomb that they shipped it west on July 14th without ever having fully tested it. However, there were several plutonium bombs available. The chosen test site was called Jornada del Muerto and was part of the Alamogordo bombing range. Oppenheimer chose the name of this test, Trinity, after a poem, and the plutonium core was taken there on July 12th. The rest of the bomb left for the range at midnight on Friday the 13th, and the assembled device was ready to be dropped by the evening of the 15th. The test was set for 4 a.m. on July 16th, but the unrelenting storms led General Groves and Dr. Oppenheimer to push it back to 5:30. While waiting for the storm to break, the scientists took bets on whether or not it would work. The storm finally stopped at 4, and the team armed the bomb around 5. At 5:30 in the morning, the bomb exploded. Asphalt at the base of the tower was turned to green sand, and the nuclear bomb's iconic mushroom cloud rose high above the desert. later calculated the explosion held the same force as 21,000 tons of TNT, which was 4 times what they had originally expected. The plutonium bomb was ready for war.
Between April 1944 and August 1945, over 700,000 of the Japanese were wounded and killed in air raids and firebombing in Tokyo. Despite this, Japan refused to surrender. It seemed that conventional warfare and bombing did not shake the Japanese and were ineffective. Because of this, on July 25, 1945, the decision to drop the atomic bomb on Japan was finalized. General Thomas Handy had written a directive to General Carl Spaatz. It stated, "The 509 Composite Group, 20th Air Force will deliver its first special bomb as soon as weather will permit visual bombing after about 3rd of August 1945 on one of the targets, Hiroshima, Kokura, Niigata, and Nagasaki." A uranium gun-type bomb arrived on the island Tinian on July 26, 1945. It had come aboard the USS Indianapolis and was accompanied by 5 C-54 cargo planes, a delivery of the nuclear components of the bomb. This was the first bomb that the US would use to bomb Japan, codenamed Little Boy. U.S. President Truman, Soviet leader Stalin, and British Prime Minister Attlee warned Japan that they must surrender unless they wished to be destroyed. This was known as the Potsdam Declaration, which was rejected by Japan on July 29, 1945. This left the U.S. with no choice but to drop the atomic bombs. On the morning of August 6, 1945, a B-29 bomber plane took the Little Boy, left Tinian, and flew to their target, Hiroshima. At 8:15 a.m., the bomb was dropped from 31,000 feet in the sky and detonated at approximately 1,958 feet off the ground after 44 seconds or so. The bomb created a huge explosion, a tall cloud enclosing the city. The bomb had the power of around 15,000 tons of TNT. 2 days later, the Soviet declared war on Japan. The United States made sure to let the citizens and leaders of Japan know that if they did not agree to the Potsdam Declaration, they would attack other areas of Japan until they did. The plutonium implosion-type bomb, Fat Man, was detonated 3 days later. At 3:47 a.m., August 9, 1945, a B-29 aircraft containing the bomb headed towards Kokura. They were there to destroy the Kokura arsenal. However, the aircraft malfunctioned, causing it to have no choice but orbit over Yakushima for an hour waiting for help. When the aircraft arrived at Kokura, it was clear from the weather that they would not be able to detonate the bomb there. So the course was changed and Fat Man was headed to Nagasaki. At 11:02 a.m., Fat Man exploded above Nagasaki at 1,650 feet off the ground. The impact of the explosion was 40% greater than Little Boy, yet Nagasaki did not take as much damage as Hiroshima. On September 2, 1945, Japan officially surrendered on the ship USS Missouri. This was the last action in World War II. The decision to bomb Japan was extremely controversial. On one hand, many innocent people were killed. On another, it ended World War II. In Hiroshima, approximately 78,000 people were killed from the blast. However, in total, over 200,000 people died from fallout and radiation effects. In Nagasaki, it is estimated that 140,000 people lost their lives due to the same reasons. The effects of the atomic bomb were horrific. However, World War II needed to come to a stop before it escalated too far and destroyed everything. The people of the Manhattan Project may have thought that this was the easiest way or the only way to end this war. The world quickly realized that this kind of warfare would lead to the end of the world if done frequently. On August 5, 1963, the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union signed a treaty to ban nuclear warfare. It was approved by the Senate and put into effect on October 10, 1963. It was known as the Limited Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Many scientists who worked on the nuclear bomb felt extremely guilty. One of them was Oppenheimer, the leader of the Manhattan Project. They were punished with crushing guilt for the rest of their lives.
The creation of the nuclear bomb has transformed the world. It is a complicated, controversial, and tragic situation. It was supposed to be the end of all war, but humanity's nature causes conflict to arise. Although no longer used in warfare, nuclear power has affected many people both positively and negatively, and is now a form of clean energy that powers homes and facilities across the world.